We of the Thri-kreen often experience glimpses into our past lives, and like many of my brethren of the Kanako or Hellbreaker pack, my first memories were of escaping hell. Many of we Mantis men retain some recollection of our lives between incarnations, but over and over my closest kinfolk seem to tread Dedge, or the Great Circle of Reincarnation, by repeatedly breaking free time after time from the frozen hellscape we call Kano, to return to the scourging sands of Athos. But beyond even the many lives I've enjoyed as a Kreen, my awakened consciousness has revealed to me that I have in truth lived countless lives, and on a myriad of worlds. Yet time and again my soul finds itself drawn once more to this arid world beneath the dark sun. It was one of these previous incarnations, Tikdul Kenodej, or Dancer of the Cold Circle, one of the progenitors of my pack, in fact, who first crafted the Chitik Dasil Chakchakcha, also known as the Amber Wedge, which over the generations had become an heirloom Dasil, or sacred crystal, relic of my pack, and so became a cause of great surprise and naturally concern the day I was first shown it as a young larva and recognized it as my own creation from another life. I've since trained my entire, arguably short, life to become worthy of wielding that weapon once again, but my birthright was stolen when the army of that vile elven Templar, Zomort, with the help of his lackeys, the telepath Scion Glaucus of Uruk, and the Thri-kreen betrayer known only as Tegzok, or Pack-breaker, slaughtered the majority of my pack, including my psionic mentor, Tek Chakatet, along with my life mate, Kalak Chosed, and fled with every piece of docile weaponry they could carry, including, of course, the Amber Wedge. We remaining Hellbreakers followed these raiders' tracks back to Uruk, and along the way overtook the now nearly exhausted Scion Glaucus, and together visited such a revenge upon him. Once subdued, each pack member administered to the cunning telepath a paralytic bite, and we left him there in the sands, exposed and helpless to the blistering, deadly rays of the noonday sun. Thirst would claim the man in mere hours, provided some local predator did not find him first. And happily, even though my own venom had not fully developed, I was still allowed a bite of vengeance nonetheless. The image of my life mate Kalakcho said dying in my arms still fresh in my mind as my mandible sank into his flesh. Yet Packbreaker had prepared for our continued pursuit, and as we approached the gates of Uruk, the Thri-kreen guards there immediately offered we of the Hellbreakers the opportunity to join in the pack of Uruk. So recently weakened by Zomort's attack, the idea of joining in so mighty a pack as what the city offered had great appeal to us. Yet no sooner did our leader, Gak Kachachos, or Brave Killer Leader, agree to such a serious partnership, did my packmates and I suddenly find ourselves overpowered, disarmed, separated, and finally, upon the orders of Packbreaker, sold into slavery. Which is, of course, how I now find myself here, with these other fellow escaped slaves that I have been trying so desperately to keep alive ever since. These poor Dratrim, or sleepers as we call them, so ill-suited to the desert paradise that Athos has become, and made all the worse for the fact that I continue to fail in securing the seemingly vast quantities of water that is required to sustain them. It is nearly unbearable how greatly I miss my pack, but right now especially Kalak Chosed, whose name means Finder of Lost Water, and as an Ixed, or Water Cleric, she could always seem to produce enough water for the pack's needs, regardless of circumstances. May our paths cross again in another life. I am Ma'ak Ari, which means Bringer of Friends. And perhaps now my name takes on a new meaning beyond the original carried insult that Gak Kachachos intended for his last and clutch. when he first believed I was little more than just another mouth to feed. Surely I've become more than that now. But where truly have I brought these new potential clutch mates? This Weezer hive I've discovered could be our potential salvation, or the source of our imminent demise. It usually requires the full force of a Thri-Kreen clutch to successfully raid the Brood Queen's chamber, and sometimes the entire pack when her drones and soldiers are at full strength. Still, Desi may be more resourceful than even Kalak Chosed. Boust has proven to be mightier than even Gak Kachahos, and Zarn, well, Zarn may have a similar fearless relationship with pain that my master Tek Chakatet, or Enlightened Teacher of the Way, often demonstrated with frightening regularity. With some luck on our side, we might all just be crazy enough to pull it off, and I suddenly begin to nurse a suspicion that perhaps fate has had some hand in crossing our paths along the Great Circle. I even find myself wondering if any of us might have actually known one another in a previous life, and then suddenly realize that we are fast becoming a new clutch in this one. Now, I would hardly be the first Thri-Kreen to accept sleepers into their clutch, but before there can even be any fear of that happening, they must survive the day first. May the elements grant us great hunt luck, for we go forth to find water and honey, or our deaths.
You notice that the handful of Weezers that are buzzing about the colony have been acting in a very erratic and frantic manner. You can see the half a dozen or so that have been buzzing around just leave, and they fly off towards, sort of kind of in the direction of the Ringing Mountains to the west, leaving the colony behind. And after they leave, you see no more movement in the colony.
I will just turn to Desi and, in his best Thri-Kreen, try his best to explain that these patrols just left. This might be our chance. Otherwise, we have to come back in hours. Tell them, do they want to go now?
I am going to translate how I see fit, which is to say, Ma'ak says we need to go now.
All right.
Okay, so she gives me that assertion. So then, without warning, I will point to Boast. Boast, stay close. And I will start to run towards what I think is the Brood Queen's lair, staying low as I can.
I nod and I follow after.
So you begin to race down this great 500-foot high Mechalot dune towards the colony. And as you get closer, give me another survival check for Ma'ak.
Oh, much better. I roll a nat 1. I have beaten it by 15.
So, well before you get within the bounds of the colony, you immediately identify that something is amiss. You start to notice on the tops of these, and just to explain, as you get closer, you can all see this now, the hive itself is made up of these crusty mounds that are almost like kind of swirling cones that rise up out of the sandy ground, coming up to sort of a rounded top, but very much the creation of some insectoid creature using its inherent mucus glands to fuse the mud into these adobe-like structures that are kind of conical, and the actual grain of the mud itself kind of swirls in a spiraling pattern around itself up to the top, indicating you can almost picture in your head the Weezers as they kind of vomit mud and mucus into a spiraling form, finally creating this mounded structure. And there are many, many of them as you get closer. But Ma'ak, you immediately realize there's something wrong with every single one of them. The domes of these structures have all been ruptured and collapsed from the top, as if something had fallen through them and crushed the domes themselves.
Are we too late? Has someone beaten us to raiding this place?
You start to think so as you pass your first dead Weezer, lying in the sand, half buried. Must have been there for probably a day or two. The intense Athasian sun has already desiccated the corpse and has begun to hollow out the exoskeleton, dissolving and evaporating the insectoid goo inside.
I will turn my thoughts just for a moment to the cycle that we are all on, and then I will continue in my mission trying to find the best way. Maybe these raiders missed it. Maybe they don't know what we know as Thrycreen, and I'm going to try to find the hidden hoard of the Brood Queen. If I can, wherever I think that would be, at least I want to try to locate it.
You thought you identified it from the top of the dune, and as you get closer into the hive, you can see dozens of dead Weezers lying curled up in the sand here and there. And every mound that you passes has been collapsed in from the top, as if some massive weight, some object was dropped down through the dome itself.
If I go to the edge of one of these holes and look down, what do I see?
It's dark. You can't see down into them. It's just a black pit, and you can hear no movement and see no movement and hear no sound.
Can I see the object that was dropped?
It's too deep and too dark.
Then I will ignore it and go towards what I identified as our best chance.
The rest of you follow suit. It's eerily quiet as dawn slowly encroaches, and the dark light gets just... the light level just slowly begins to raise. But it gets colder and colder, and you can all see your breath billowing from your mouths. And as you approach what you believe to be the dome of the Brood Queen, you can see that the entire top of the dome itself has been collapsed in and is open to the night sky.
Okay, I think Ma'ak at this point is, despite himself, starting to show signs of nervousness as I produce both my Githka and my two Chachkachas, and I hold them ready as I slowly creep up towards the hole in the Brood Queen's mound and do my best to first taste the air before I actually poke my head over there.
Give me another survival check.
This one I make by 4.
You hear no movement, you glimpse no movement, and you smell death.
I activate my life detection psionic ability. I make my MAC roll, and so I will basically scan 180 degrees, 40 yards beneath us, and try to detect for any life at all. The first round, I would detect humans, demi-humans, humanoids, mammals, and monsters of 8 hit dice or more. Second round would be all creatures below 8 hit dice. So I'd spend two rounds and be thorough before we went down there.
After a couple minutes, you detect no life in the colony, in your immediate vicinity. And basically, to make a long story short, eventually you all realize there was an attack here in the last day or two, and it wiped out the entire colony, and the brood chamber itself holds a dead queen, curled up, and you are fortunate in the sense that you managed to find one orb of water containing a single gallon of water.
I give it to the sleepers.
As you, at this point, sort of begin to relax your guard somewhat, you discover that around the colony there are a handful of those humanoid vulture creatures lying dead in the sand alongside the Weezers. When you inspect the brood chamber, the Queen's brood chamber, you find several large stones laying in the debris that are obviously foreign and must have been dropped from a high height.
Did the vultures drop these stones?
It does seem that is the case.
But they are dead too.
Some of them are.
And water and honey gone. Oh, gone. Just one. You take. Long road ahead.
Would it be safe to sleep here today, or do we need to get away?
I won't make you roll for that, Ma'ak. You think that there's no reason for anybody to come back here. So yeah.
Then at least we can get out of the sun and rest. Or at least, not bake in it throughout the day. Okay.
Because there are still tunnels actually under the ground.
I think Ma'ak feels it's completely responsible for all of this, and he would probably search every inch. While they rested, he would search every inch of this hive for anything that was left behind or buried in the sand or anything like that. He'll use Water Find if you want him to roll that.
Yeah, give me that.
I make that by 11.
Well, like I said, that will encompass you finding that one orb of 1 gallon of water. Beyond that, there's nothing else. The hive was completely stripped of any and all other forms of sustenance.
This is not the way we do things. We leave the hive so that next season we can come back and there's more honey. Now this is worthless. Ma'ak is very frustrated.
There's no love lost between Weezers and Thri-kreen, but you would never eradicate them in your pursuit of water or sustenance. You treat them like a beekeeper would treat a beehive. So this is sad.
Yeah, I think I'm probably in mourning. But I will try not to let it affect my fellows too much. I think they're more concerned with their own survival, and in a way I am too, because I don't know if I can get them across the desert now.
So are you going to camp for the day?
I think we're back to moving at night and conserving water, and I need a few hours to meditate, but other than that, I will basically be on watch while they rest up for the long journey ahead.
Well, we at least found something. This will allow us to keep going a little bit longer. But it won't last us very long. We'll have to keep searching.
Yeah, I'm starting to think maybe it's just not in the bones. This whole, us staying alive thing.
We just have to try our best anyway. We've escaped. We're free. I mean, if we've come this far...
Sometimes freedom means realizing that you're just a drop of water on a mechalot's back somewhere, burning up in the dark sun.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I'm trying to say is, sometimes all you can do is die, kid.
But we will find a way. We will find a way. We'll find something out there.
Alright. If you say so. I mean, we'll see.
And I look to the others. I look to Desi. What is she doing?
Oh, I am only thinking. I almost feel too naive to be frightened. I was happy to find 1 gallon's worth of water here. I didn't know to hope for anything more. But I am curious how many days away, I would probably ask Ma'ak, how many days away do you believe we are from the city?
You have the map, which you procured from the caravan. And you know that near to where you are right now, there is an oasis, and there is a village called Cled. The oasis, as indicated, seems to be closer.
I am wondering, when we looked at these vultures, do we have any hope of extracting blood from them, or are they desiccated?
Things don't putrefy the way they do in moist climates, so the bodies are already starting to mummify. But if you dig deep enough into the bird bodies, there might be some still palatable meat left. Anyone who has a survival ability, whether it's Sandy Waste or otherwise, could give me a check.
I have both survival and hunting.
Yeah, hunting would work.
Okay, I mean, we of the Kreen, we only eat live or fresh meat, but I think for cases of survival, okay, actually I make it by 8, so maybe I can get something edible out of it.
You can get something edible out of it that you think would be suitable for the humanoids. You are very loath to debase yourself in that way.
I actually am probably already a little full from my fresh kill earlier this afternoon, and I am actually probably fairly happy with myself that I have managed to procure at least something, and so Ma'ak will very excitedly return to the group of you down in the Weezer Hive and present a few strips of Zerkakos, and I will drop it gleefully at your feet.
It's stringy and tough and filled with grit, and there are areas where it does become soft, and it's hard to eat it, but you can make yourself.
There's something about the softness here that really is the most unnerving, I feel like.
Just close your eyes, imagine a banquet feast.
Oh, I'm not complaining. I'm just enjoying all the feelings that I'm having right now.
At least it's better than the gruel. I'd say as I gratefully accept the meat. I have been quite hungry. I have a large body that needs to get a lot of energy.
That's right, boy. Eat up. I need you in tip-top shape so you can carry me more.
I smile.
Well, Ma'ak will sit there and very pleasurably watch you eat and probably fake enjoying your food a little bit. And then he is going to... Aaron, do I think that I might be able to create one of the... basically the travois sleds that my people will create when we're like transporting eggs and stuff? Could I rig something up from things that I might find around here? It'd be like poles and...
Well, it would be like bug parts. You would use bug legs.
Do I think I could do that, though?
With the body of the queen. Okay, so the lesser Weezers, the drones and all of the different forms of the Weezers that exist in the hive, they're smaller, and their segmented legs are only about 1 to 2 feet in length between segments. So not really. But the queen, her segmented leg parts are 6 feet long each. So you could break away portions of her legs and create something. And with her wings, which are non-functional, they are incredibly hard and leathery and create basically a plank that is roughly 7 feet long by 2.5, 3 feet wide in the middle of the oval. So if you laid the two of them together and strapped them together somehow, you could create a bed upon which you could then strap the wings themselves to her legs.
What if I used Vulture Man tendon and even made a bed of feathers?
Yep.
Could I? I think that's what I'm going to be doing while they sleep. And when they awake, I will have created this travois sled.
Okay. Do you tell them you're doing that?
No, probably not. I probably just do it.
Okay, so in terms of everyone camping for the day, do you want to set up watches? What do you want to do?
Watches would be wise.
Indeed. It seemed like Mark wanted to search around, so I suppose one of the rest of us should always be keeping an eye outside as well to see if anyone approaches.
I'll take first watch.
I will take second.
I'll follow after that.
On my watch, I want to commune with the plane of fire. I guess while they're falling asleep, I will create a small, campfire. And I will sit in it and let the flames cleanse my body.
Weezer guano, you find, is a very good source of flammable material. Along with the shattered remains of the water and honey orbs, the membrane itself is also very flammable, which Ma'ak can tell you. And you can create a small fire. Now, what do you want to do? Describe what you do.
Is this fire in the cave or outside of the cave?
I would assume you'd put it in the, where the ceiling has been broken away so that the flames can...
Yeah.
The tunnels themselves are very narrow. They're only 3 feet in diameter. So you have to crawl through those. And you can make your way into the tunnels themselves and lay there and sleep. And it gives you cover from the sky and the elements. But all of the domed structures themselves, and once you kind of thoroughly explore the place, you find that there are brood chambers and hive chambers and all these different chambers that are filled with dead weezers, and all of them have been broken into by falling rocks. So you find that sleeping in the tunnels themselves is the best bet. But making a fire obviously has to be done in one of these open chambers.
Yeah, so I'll do it right outside of where we are, so I'm still watching, in theory, if anything comes toward us. But yeah, I guess you would see me going around gathering up bodies and droppings and arranging a small platform of dead things to burn that I then set on fire. And, maybe if someone is fading in and out of sleep at the beginning, you might catch a glimpse of me as I sit down into the fire. I've, of course, had to strip my clothing away so that it does not burn up, and I will sit nude in the fire, and I begin to pray.
It's a fascinating sight for those who glimpse it as they sit down in the fire and begin to scoop up handfuls of burning cinder and rub them over their exposed flesh, and then speak in some dialect that is indecipherable. We'll just kind of leave it there.
I guess something that should be mentioned, though, is as this is happening, the accumulated filth of all these days of travel that we have, this harrowing journey that we've been on, all of that just burns away. And it is as if I have been, properly cleaned for the first time in a long time.
When you all come to the next day, Zarn is pristinely clean and fresh. So, long story short, the day passes without incident. There are a few moments, Desi, when you are on watch. Of course, you let the fire go out because by the time you're on watch, it's midday. And the sun is blazing down, baking the soil and anything that it shines upon. So, fire is the last thing that you want to be near. And there are a few moments where you see a couple Weezers kind of fly into the camp, buzz around frantically. A light actually crawl down into the Queen's brood chamber, and you kind of back up, and then they just take off. And it happens again, Boast, during your time. There's one more Weezer that shows up, and when it lands on the rim of the Queen's brood chamber, and it has a big globule of a dark colored substance. You haven't seen this one before. It doesn't resemble the orbs that have water in them. It lands on the rim, looks down, scatters around frantically, drops the orb down into the chamber, and then immediately buzzes off into the sky. And it's just a few feet away from you, and you can see it's got this kind of amber-colored substance inside the orb.
I move up to investigate it. Have I seen anything like this before? I imagine not.
No, you haven't. And like I said, it doesn't look like the other orbs that you've encountered, the two other orbs you've encountered so far. It's got some other kind of substance inside of it. Ma'ak, what are you doing at this point?
I'm probably still working on the Travois sled, though hopefully I'm close to being done.
Yeah, you should be done about this time. Once again, you see the orb as you return in and basically say, hey guys, look what I made. And you see the orb and you recognize it as Weezer honey.
You see my eyes turn like a pale green, and I excitedly point at what you're holding there. You found some! You found food! Good job, boss!
We can eat this?
Yum. And if you let me, I will take if you let me hold the orb, I will take just the smallest bite.
Oh, I hand it over to you.
Yeah, I take a small bite of the honey, just enough that I need to get me through the next day or two, and then the rest gets shared with the sleepers.
So you know that the honey has healing properties. If you eat a quart of it, so if you eat 1/4 of this globule, it will heal you for a substantial amount of damage.
Then actually, I probably wouldn't do more than just maybe take a little lick, a little taste.
Yeah, just a little lick, and in fact, what you also know is that the membrane itself that exists around all of these orbs is a hardened form of the honey, which is in itself edible, but doesn't really have much of an effect. So yeah, it's Exactly. And so you can just lick the membrane itself and get the taste, which is incredibly sweet and delicious. It's a delicacy amongst the Thri-kreen.
It's a treasure right now, especially because I think we're all very hungry and thirsty. But I will do my best to encourage us not to eat it. And I will try my best to explain its healing properties to Desi, so that she can translate.
When I wake from my watch and I walk into the open chamber and see a dwarf communing with the fire, I will say, "What are you doing?"
I immediately grab my clothing and hold it to my chest and go, please give me a moment to get decent, at least.
I will hide my eyes with my hands and I will say, "It is so hot in here, I cannot even breathe."
I know. It was so cold in all the other rooms. And I felt like I was breathing too much. Do you ever have that problem?
Not in the desert, no.
Look, I need the fire. I need contact with the fire in order to do the things that I do. I'm a fire cleric, which means I channel. There's another world, like our world, but everything there is fire. And it's beautiful. And it has graced me with a magnificent power. It has given me the ability to access that world and pull some of that flame into ours so that I might serve to repopulate this world with that which will one day burn in the flames of the plane of fire. And also just the fire that comes here. You know, it's a little of that, a little of this. But yeah, I can't just do this stuff normally. I need my amulet to contact the forces that power me, and I need to make contact with them regularly so that I can check in, and if I've pleased them, they see fit to grant me access for another day. But it's a very fickle process. Do you know what that's like? Having to work for someone else?
I do. In fact, I do.
And being at their whim?
Are you one of those people that wants to burn everyone and everything to the ground over and over?
I guess you've met another fire cleric, huh?
Oui? That is to say, yes.
It's not that simple. There's a natural order to things that should exist and that doesn't exist here because this world has been desecrated, and the natural world has suffered greatly at the hands of defilers, sorcerer kings. It's not as simple as wanting everything to be on fire and then not on fire and then on fire again. It's about the proper order of things, that things die and then they give way to new life. You know, the sun bears no ill will. It simply must burn. And as its children, we must all supply it with sustenance. It's about serving a greater cause the existence of this world. And perhaps a better world one day.
So you see yourself as part of a cycle?
Again, I feel like cycle is a bit reductive. But I see myself attempting to restore balance.
Do we all have to die to achieve it?
I mean, everything dies. It just is in my interest to keep certain things alive and get rid of other things that prevent life from blossoming. But no, I want there to be plenty of life because people build. Creatures build things. We nurture the land. We tend the earth. Plants, they need to be cultivated at this point, you know.
So you can burn them?
I mean, so that they can serve their purpose, which, yes, is to burn. But I mean, yes, I see where this feels like a semantic kind of conversation. I look Desi dead in the eyes with my what you're registering now as like black as coal. Like my eyes are complete. Like they are without any other pigmentation, and I say, it is like it is said. Fire cares not what it consumes, only that it burns. So is the fifth revelation of the Crimson Exarchs. And then I get dressed.
So, moving forward, really nothing else happens as you rest. There's a couple more Weezers that show up. They descend, they search the place, and then off they go. Very much like any other insects, like honeybees, any other insects that come home to the hive and discover that the queen is dead. They then immediately go off in search of new hives. And that is what you really kind of figure out is happening. Around 6 p.m., as the sun is beginning to descend towards the mountains, Ma'ak has finished his work on his contraption, and you can all begin to plot your next move.
I'm wondering. So if we are headed to the oasis is what direction?
It is southwest.
Did we see any weasels leave for new hives to the southwest?
No, you saw them head west, yeah.
I kind of feel like maybe that is not our best bet to try to find another Weezer hive.
I thought if they were going in the same direction, but if not...
I think with this contraption, which I will demonstrate, is basically a travois sled that should glide rather effortlessly across the sands. You can hook it up either on one set of shoulders or two, and then we can carry one or possibly even two of you on the sled behind us, and now we are not limited day or night. We're only limited with how quickly one or two of us can pull the sled. And in theory, I don't ever have to be the one to take a rest. I can pull night and day.
Could you pull 3?
Don't know if I could pull 3. I think that would probably be pushing it, but we can try. Let's experiment a little bit as we get out of this area, Aaron, and start heading southwest. Well, first I want to see if we can pull Zarn, because Zarn is the slowest of the group.
At this point, half the day is gone by at least, so you all have the equivalent of 1 gallon and 1 quart, which is 5 servings of water. And you've all had 1 quart each of your daily allotment for the day. So basically, by the time you leave camp, you have drank another 3 quarts of water. So you've got two quarts left over. Ma'ak is still fine because Ma'ak is on a weekly schedule as opposed to the rest of you being on a daily schedule. And so as you leave camp, you have ingested half of your requirement for water for the day. And you have half a gallon of water left over. And you can head out into the desert seeking out the oasis. So, Ma'ak, give me a survival check for Sandy Wastes.
I miss it by 1.
Can I assist in some way with navigation?
You have navigation. You can choose to give me a navigation check based on your map reading.
I rolled a 6 under 12.
So, Ma'ak cannot seem to figure out exactly where this oasis might be, but you then take the map out and are able to navigate the group towards it. And you spend the next 8-10 hours working your way southwest towards where you believe this oasis to be. And eventually, as the sun has set several hours ago, it's dead of night, and you can see those twin suns of Raulerson and Gathay begin to rise over the eastern horizon. The golden disc, twin moons, the golden disc of Gathay and the verdant green dial of Raulerson rise in the eastern horizon and begin to shed their light upon the landscape. And you think you glimpse in the distance what might be the gleam of water.
Is there can anyone see if there's like a bramble around this one? Because...
Well, Zarn can give me a water find, as can Ma'ak give me a water find.
I rolled a 4, and my water find is 14.
I fail by 4.
Zarn thinks that they have discovered a legitimate source of water. You can see around this gleam reflecting in the night, in the light of the twin moons, what are known as yeeper trees. These are 50-foot tall coniferous trees that have incredibly stiff needles. And they grow around oases.
Well, I definitely relay that. Yeah. This tree, you can use it to make a healing tea. We should take some of it with us.
It could certainly come in handy. Yes, we should.
How far are we from the oasis at this point?
Probably about a quarter mile.
Okay, well, I'm going to be searching the sands for tracks, signs of creatures coming and going, or particularly signs of whatever else might be guarding this place.
Give me a survival roll.
I make it by 1.
You see a small set of Erdlu tracks heading towards the oasis from your direction. Just a single individual Erdlu.
Do I see an Erdlu down by the water's edge?
Too far away.
All right, well, let's follow these Erdlu tracks, at least, and be cautious.
I will follow behind Bust.
I will draw my weapons. I don't know what to expect.
I as well.
Yep.
As you approach the oasis, and you get to within a visual range where you can start to identify what you're seeing down there. You can see that there are two massive forms. One is just lying there, unmoving. This sort of domed kind of circular mass lying at the water's edge. The other is similar in shape, but is sort of moving around erratically, but laboriously, like it's shifting a incredible mass under itself. Some huge lumberous creature that is moving from side to side, nudging the form that is laying there immobile, spinning around, kicking up dust, shifting these yipper trees. At one point, it actually uproots one and knocks it over. And as you get closer, you realize that what you're seeing are two massive mechalots. These gigantic lizard creatures that are 16 feet high and 30, 40 feet long, with hard shelled carapace on their backs and armored skulls, and they lumber about. They're the same creatures that had been drawing the caravan that had been pulling you through the desert as slaves just 2 days prior. The same kind of creatures.
The same kind, not the exact same ones.
Well, it's nighttime. It's hard to say. But there are two. One of them is not moving. The other one seems completely agitated.
It's probably trying to get its companion to get up. And it's probably dead.
I nod my head in assent. Do I see any signs of... I know it's dark, but do we see any signs of violence? Like, was it injured and died? Is there a trail of blood, for instance? Or can I find the trail that led in through the Ypres tree grove, so to speak?
Give me a survival check. Or, no, give me a hunting check. Sorry, give me a hunting check.
I make it by 13.
You can see in the moonlight a massive swath of disturbed sand leading into the oasis from a direction sort of ahead of you. You're coming in from the northeast, and the trails are coming in from the north. So they're coming in from the north side of the oases, and these mechalots are on the west side of the oasis, and you're approaching from the east. You can't see any particular disturbance outside of their trails, though, coming in over the dunes. As you peer into the night, you think you see a lot of different trails coming in from many directions, which makes sense for an oasis.
Does it make sense for me to maybe try and go in there and soothe it?
You've never tried to do that with a creature of this stature.
Right. And when we were talking about it before, it seemed like these things are kind of hard to rein in, right?
Mechalots are notoriously ill-tempered and they will easily turn on their handlers.
How close is the ring of trees to the water's edge? Do I think I could stay hidden is it like less than 30 yards from the tree line to the water's edge?
The trees themselves grow in a radius out to about 30 to 40 feet into the muddy, sandy basin, all the way into the standing water itself around the rim of the oasis. You also now notice that there seems to be, on the northwest side of the oasis, a man-made arch.
Is it safe to say that we all go down to the water, refill our water skins, drink till we're sick, and then drink again?
Are you all going to approach? And if so, how?
I will take the lead and just stride confidently towards the water.
As you begin to stride down towards the water, the mechalot suddenly takes notice of you, becomes still, and begins to bound around the rim of the oasis in your direction. Lumbering, you can feel the ground tremble under your feet as every step it takes. And it gets to the east side of the oasis and basically pushes itself up as high as it can, arches its armored back, and takes a position of defense.
I cast light on its eyes, which should blind it.
As soon as you cast light on its eyes, it begins to thrash around, as a mechalot can, which means slow, lumbering swishes back and forth as the incredible bulk of its mass slowly twists on itself, and it cries out and starts to stomp around in and out of the water, splashing. This is the moment where you're quite certain that the other Mechalot must be dead, because it's pounding around, it's knocking trees down, it's splashing in the water, and the other mass lays absolutely still and motionless at the water's edge on the other side of the oasis.
Get water, wild chance! And I will move to the water's edge and start filling whatever water receptacles we have.
Ma'ak charges on down to the water's edge to start getting, at which point the Mechalot starts to rear up and make signs like it's going to defend the oasis against this intruder.
Then I will do my psychic attack. That's a 19. That definitely hits, I assume.
Yeah, you absolutely hit.
He takes 2d8 psychic damage, which is a 9. 9 total. Do I get past his PSP?
Yes, you do.
Then, it will be unable to take actions for 1d4 rounds, and in the past you've rolled that. So, but it should buy us at least one round. Hopefully that's enough to refill our water casks.
The Mechalot suddenly freezes up, and it begins to kind of laboriously kind of sway where it stands.
And I use all 4 arms to each fill one water container.
So you can get 4 gallons of water between the group of you.
I will drink then too while I'm here.
You immediately scoop up a handful of water and take a drink. At which point you feel the scalding hot bitterness of the oasis. Now, the scalding hot water is not so unique. That's fairly common. Most oases are fed by volcanic underground springs, and so they are typically scalding hot. And they typically have a pungent, bitter odor to them, like you would smell at any natural spring with heavy minerals. You scoop up the water and you suck it in between your mandibles. And you immediately feel the acerbic pain as it washes down your gullet. And you take 20 points of damage.
Then I die.
Well, you fall unconscious. And as the rest of you surge forward to scoop up the water also, give me wisdom checks.
My wisdom is 15. I rolled a 19.
17, and I rolled a 19.
I rolled 15 and I have 14.
But you're all very, very lucky, because as you see Ma'ak take his drink and immediately collapse upon the shore of the oasis, and you all begin to reach in and grab up a handful of this water. You look over and it touches your lips, and then you immediately let it fall. And so the group of you, Desi, you end up taking 4 points of damage. Zarn, you take 1 point of damage. And Boast, you take 1 point of damage. As the liquid that you just start to suck it in, and then you immediately spit it out.
Ugh. What's going on with the Mechalot?
The Mechalot is still in this dazed state. You're very worried, though.
Maybe we should get out of here. Let's get Mock away from here.
Too many things happening at once. I cast Cure Wounds on Mock.
You cast Cure Light Wounds, you stabilize Ma'ak as he lays there, convulsing and vomiting foamy liquid from his mandibles.
You have 1 hit point now. What about the honey?
The honey, yes.
Well, give him some honey.
So you give him a portion of the honey. Roll a d8 as you let it drip into his mandible.
5.
You now have 5 hit points. Ma'ak, you come through and suddenly you realize how foolish you were, because it's very common for these oases to be poisoned in this regard. And you realize now that your desperation led you to drink without consideration. And how many of your clutch mates have you seen in the past die that way, or how many tales have you heard of clutch mates dying that way?
So do we need to, treat the water? Do we need to cook it, or...?
It's always different. Every oasis has a different set of rules governing it. And it's hard. It's going to require some examination. At this point, once you flee back up the hill, the Mechalot retreats back to the other side of the oasis, begins to frantically nudge the dead Mechalot, and after several minutes, it rears up, it roars in pain and agony and anger. It splashes around in the water, dipping its head down into it and lifting it up. And then it turns around and it flees off into the desert. of course, as fast as a mechalot can flee, which is about as fast as a halfling can flee, which is to say it lumbers off into the dark. As you approach the rim of the oasis itself, you can now tell that the air is filled with sulfurous, noxious fumes, which, up until this point, was not a big alarm bell for you, because the majority of oases that any of you have ever encountered tend to be boiling hot springs that come up from the volcanic underground of Athos. And they tend to smell bitter and noxious. And as you make your way around the water's edge, you find more and more dead creatures who have attempted to drink from this water. And you can also see that there is a swarm of this mass of worms and beetles crawling through the muck and the mire, glinting in the moonlight. And then as you get closer to the arch, you can see that there is a small bridge constructed of yeeper wood, which leads to the marble arch. It was obviously built by some ancient, preceding Athasian civilization, and at the base of the arch are dozens of clay pots, all filled with various grains, fruits, and vegetables, all of which have become desiccated and moldy. Scattered here and there on the bridge are leaves and stems of some purple herb. Zarn, give me an herbalism check.
1.
You recognize them as methylenoc, which is an extremely poisonous herb that is found only in the Ringing Mountains.
Does that make sense that we are in that location? Or
it doesn't make sense, but what does make sense to you is, because of how well you rolled, you know that there are only a few species of creatures that are not affected by this poison. And one of those species are elves.
So elves planted these.
It would seem that way. You find these leaves not only in like canopic jars that are at the base of the arch, but you also find them in the water itself and around the edge now. You see them scattered here and there around the edge of the oasis itself. They were brought here deliberately.
Is that what poisoned us? Or me?
Desi, do you know anything about this methylenoc?
I would tell you not to lick it. That is all.
I think it's safe to say that this water was poisoned.
I want to look around for this elf. I'm going to kill him.
Well, there's nobody else here.
I'm gonna fill my water skin with the poisoned water.
Okay. Anyone else?
No,
Yeah,
I'm not
no.
going to.
No.
You fill up your water skin with some of this poison water. The rest of you leave it behind. You then go through the process of taking whatever you can from this mechalot that's left here dead by the waterside. and bolstering the sledge that you've created with Ma'ak. And the next thing is to make your way towards that village of Kled.
We want to get as much Yipper sap as we can while we're here, too.
You're able to gather quite a bit of that and make your way off and head off towards Kled. And at this point, you realize that your effort is at absolute desperation. Because you thought that you were going to be able to drink your fill for the rest of the day, and now you realize that it's all for naught. And the best hope for water is this village of Kled that exists somewhere to the southwest, down there in the boundary of the Stony Barrens. And you can make your way in that direction. Ma'ak, give me a survival check. And Zarn, give me a navigation check.
Alright.
Okay, well, I make survival by 6.
By 6.
Ooh, I rolled a 2.
Ma'ak, you're able to lead the group out of this valley of the oasis and head in the general direction leading into the south. But you quickly realize that you are beginning to head into an area of stony barrens, at which point you know you're completely out of your element. And your ability to navigate starts to diminish with every step you take. At which point, Zarn steps forward and says, "No, you understand how this map works. And you can push forward, and you get to a point where you can see a village in the distance that you're quite certain must be Kled, because out here in the wilderness, what other possible enclave of humanity could there be? And it's the middle of the night, and you can just see a few glints of light coming from some structures here and there down in the valley amongst this wasteland of massive stone outcroppings that you have had to begin to slow your pace through, because it is just volcanic stone here and there and everywhere, trying to trip you up and break your ankles. But you see it there. You see it there in the distance.
I guess we go to the village.
Yes, let's.
You head down into the village. And as you approach, you enter into the perimeter, and it's this small, dusty backwater. The homes, the buildings themselves are built out of a combination of volcanic rock mixed with mud mortar, and other buildings made out of mud brick completely. They're low structures that just come out above the level of the ground, maybe 6 or 7 feet, and you can tell that they are dug out. So, which means if you were to enter any of these structures, you would be stepping down several feet into a structure that has been dug 3-4 feet into the ground. And As soon as you enter the perimeter of the town, there's one person that notices you. Their eyes go wide. They dart off into the darkness, into a building. A few moments later, they come out, followed by several individuals. Someone yells to the town, "Newcomers! Newcomers!" And people start to exit their homes from all sides of this dusty little place. And this old woman rushes up to you and says, "Water! Please! Do you have water?" And before you can respond, members of the town flock from all directions and begin to reach out, asking desperately for water. They are dwarves. "Water! Water! Please! Water! Do you have water? Please! Water!"
What do you have to trade?
They look at you forlorn and dejected. "We trade." They motion around, and you see this dusty, desolate hovel, and they say, "Mud and nothing else. Please, water."
Have the elves been poisoning your water supply?
"Baroness, you must speak to Baroness." And a couple moments later, one of them rushes off, and they return, and you see this incredibly ancient dwarf approaching you, hobbling, being escorted by two dwarven women on either side, holding him up. And he slowly, decrepitly makes his way towards you, and he says, I am Baroness. We are in desperate need of water."
What happened to your water?
"The Shuritai took the druid of the oasis away from us, and now we have no source of water. Please, you must help us."
You have listened to an episode of Red Moon Roleplaying, where we played the scenario A Little Knowledge for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition and the Dark Sun setting. This has been a collaboration with our friends at the podcast Adventure Hook. Do check out the link in the show notes to get tons of new ideas for your game. Our Dungeon Master was Aaron Campbell, and Matthias was joined by Robert Randle, Amedeo Turturro, and Emelie O'Hara. The music was made by Ager Sonis and was used with permission from their label, Cryochamber. Check out their website at cryochamber.bandcamp.com or their YouTube channel for some moody, dark ambient for your gaming table. We would like to give massive thanks to our champions of the Red Moon, Martin Heuschober, Nastasia Raulerson, Simon Cooper, David, Julia, Camilla, and Ludwig Manford for their generous support. And we would of course also like to thank all of our other patrons. Without your support, the show would not be possible. If you want to support our work, please check us out on Patreon. You can get access to bonus campaigns for Cult of Indy Lost and Coriolis there, as well as get early and raw access to all of our recordings. You can also hear your name read on the show as a champion of the Red Moon, as well as play Cult with us. Most importantly, that support is what keeps the show going, so do check us out there. Thank you again for listening, and remember, water is life.